All right.
All right, Brother Cox, how you doing today, man?
Doing pretty good, man. Another day, another 50 cent.
Yeah, I know, man. Quarter for me, but we good, man. We got another good show, man. We're gonna talk on the other side of the house a little bit about female medical discrepancies and things that are that are killing our women and then people who look like us. We're gonna have a special guest on in a little bit to talk a little bit about that. But before that, we're gonna do a little bit of breaking news. A couple things happen here in our country today that is worth talking about. We always got the hit news, and we're trying to keep everybody in the loop. So we're gonna go ahead and get started.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the shooting of the American political, I don't know what you would call him. What would we call it? Charlie Kirk, a political pundit or a political staffer? Whatever you want to call him, he was one of the closest advisors to Donald Trump. He's been credited for bringing the young vote to Donald Trump this year. I think Donald Trump got 37% of the young vote this year, the first time a Republican candidate has gotten that kind of number. And Donald Trump personally thanked Mr. Kirk for bringing that to him. And he brought he was true to who he was. He was on college campuses today talking to young people. I think the total amount of people at his rally today was about 3,000 people were estimated at his rally. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about that rally and a bit about what he was talking about. It was on the campus of a Utah State University, I believe. He had some college students there, and that's kind of that like what he does. He go to college campus and he says he faces off with the opposition, answers questions, go head on with them and everything. So I think the last question that was asked of him was how many mass shootings were done by transgender people. I don't know if that was a joke question or it was a trick question. And his answer to that question was too many. Okay, off-putting kind of. And then he said, then next person asked, how many mass shootings have there been in the last several years? And Charlie Kirk's answer was not counting gang violence. I think gangs took a slap right there on the cheek. He said, not counting gang violence. And he put his mic down. And when he put his mic down, he got shot in the neck. And that was it. So even at the end, he was answering controversial questions. I really have no problem with what he was doing on that campus. I really have no problem when you bring in political discourse to the campuses, even though it seems like Republicans have a problem when liberal people go to college campus. You say they're being force-fed information and stuff. So I really don't have a problem with it. They're exercising their American uh, United States constitutional right for public discourse without violence and stuff. So I need to say this right up front that there was no reason for that young man to lose his life, for his wife and children to lose her husband and the father. That has no place in American politics, but that's where we are. And we take our cue from our leaders for the most part. And this young man was an avid guns rights. He says everybody should have the right to carry arms. So what do you say?
I mean, I don't have much to say. I mean, I've always been somebody that says a couple things. One is, you can't spend your entire life essentially going around the world raping, robbing, being disrespectful to people, saying things that are out of line, out of order, and then think that that's not going to come back and hit you. You can't constantly ring the devil's doorbell and expect for him not to answer at some point. And I think this is just what you typically see when people get out there and do the type of things that some of these people do and say and treat people, and then that violence comes back to haunt them. I mean, we've seen it in the history of our country. I mean, that's what typically happens. People get out there, they're constantly running their mouths, they're constantly being controversial because there's money involved in it and fame involved in it. And then it gets worse. I mean, you don't stop, if you say something controversial and somebody like the president or somebody that you like comments on it, you're just going to say something that becomes a little bit more controversial and a little bit more violent in order to get more people to follow you. And I think that's what happened today. I mean, I'm not going to sit here. I don't want anyone to get killed, but I'm not going to say that I'm surprised. I'm not surprised one bit that somebody who either listens to him and likes him or listens to him and didn't like him took action into their own hands. When you constantly write bills and the Supreme Court constantly overturns or confirms, um, anybody with the ability to go and purchase a gun, anybody with the ability to go and get a gun and walk around with a gun, and you continually do that, at some point, you're going to give it to somebody who's not either mentally stable or somebody who's against or opposed to what you're talking about, and they're going to take it out on you. I mean, it's standard stuff, man. I mean, I don't know why people are surprised. I mean, I really don't. I mean, to me, it should be a lesson to our political leaders and a lesson to our leaders, so-called leaders in this country, to recognize that by you bending the knee and not fighting against where our country, direction our country is going, this is what you're calling to the forefront. I mean,
Exactly.
none of them are safe. All these big corporation CEOs that are constantly running up to the White House and changing their political views depending on the wind without standing on something, you're not safe. Anybody can be touched. And if today should have proved that anybody at any time can be touched.
Yeah, it's really getting rough out there, and the country takes its lead from its leadership. It's easy to blame Donald Trump for all of this back because of the rhetoric he spews out on a daily basis, the names he called people, the different way he described people of color in particular. I take great you know offense to the way he talk about people of color on a regular basis. But if you say something back or you say something that they think is disrespectful, you're a bad person. The reason why this kind of stuff can happen and will happen in America, because it's going to happen again, is because our leadership is not fighting back. It's been spewed out for the last 8, maybe 10 years, and we're not fighting back. We got these few people that go on air and say, we need to bring down the discourse. And in the same word or in the same sentence, they say, but the Democrats are doing this. Or the Democrats say, we need to bring the discourse down, but the Republicans are doing this. It's like apologizing, but not really apologizing. Well, I said we need to bring the discourse down, but you didn't put the second part in there where you said you blamed somebody for it other
Right.
than yourself.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's like apologizing, but not apologizing. So until we can get past that point, or I know I did, but what about you? I know I did, but what about you? Until we get past that, we're going to continue to have the same problems that we have right now. And until grown-ups get in the room, because I'm not going to hold back on this. Donald Trump got a whole lot of amateurs in his administration and in his cabinet, and these people do not know what they're doing. It is dangerous. It is dangerous out there. The governor of Utah shooting half an hour after the shooting, he done came out and said it was a political assassination. You don't know who killed this man. They still don't have him in custody, but it's a political assassination. How can you come to that conclusion without having a suspect? Because that's the first thing we jump at. We want to jump to this kind of stuff. Let me ask you this question. Why did the whole country come to a standstill because this happened today? There's no news out there. Fill me in on what else is going on in the world besides this today, Suleiman, that we should be talking about as a country.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of things. I mean, we'll start out here nationally. I mean, one, there was another school shooting today, where I don't know if the people,
Denver?
right, I don't know if the people were killed, but I know there were 3 people that were wounded in the school shooting.
Yeah.
Not on TV. No one's talking about that, as if this is just normal for our kids to be attacked by, weapons of war. We had the Russians sending drones into a NATO country. And for those that don't understand what our NATO treaty is, what our NATO partners is, if one NATO country is attacked, that means all NATO countries are attacked. And we all come to their defense. That's what essentially the NATO treaty says. But for the first time in, I believe, the history of NATO, the United States neglected to assist. So Russians are attacking Poland, a NATO country, for multiple years, and we did nothing. Also, the Israelis attacked supposedly leaders of Hamas in Qatar. So basically, Israel attacked a sovereign country to try to kill someone that they consider needs to be eliminated. Not saying that that doesn't happen, but to openly do it, I mean, why would anyone have any issues with Qatar responding and attacking Israel? I mean, if somebody came into the United States and dropped bombs on Denver because they said that two terrorist leaders were there, would we be okay with that? And that's essentially what has happened. So you got two major international incidents that the media doesn't want to talk about. It's not important. And then you have, somebody that was murdered today. He wasn't assassinated. He's not a politician. He's not a leader. I mean, he's a podcaster. He was murdered, not assassinated. He was murdered. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. President Lincoln was assassinated. Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. Malcolm X was assassinated. Robert Kennedy Jr. was assassinated. Charlie Kirk was murdered.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So there you go. We had other things happening today. No disrespect to this young man and his family. Just that I'm going to put a bow on this by saying that the President of the United States of America is ordering that flags be flown at half staff for an ordinary citizen that supports his campaign. That goes to show you how transactional our president is. He's a transaction. He's not a transformational leader. He's a transactional leader. If you do for me, I'll do for you. So if you're not voting for him or you're not doing anything for him, he really don't care about you. And even if you're voting for him and you're a supporter for him, if there's nothing you can bring to the table, he don't care about you. So
Yeah, go ahead, finish, please.
so I'm just saying, once again, I feel sorry for this young man and his family. But for the president of the United States to have the flags fly half staff, really? Tell me what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously don't agree with that. I mean, I'm former military. I come from a military family, and our flags mean something. People have died in this country fighting on behalf of that flag. And to lower for something like this, in my opinion, I think is disrespectful. But I'm not surprised. I mean, that is this administration. That's this president who, thumbs his finger at traditions, thumbs his finger at troops that have actually defended this country. So I'm not surprised. It's par for course. I mean, par for course for him. It's just, I mean, what are you going to do? There's not much you can do about it. I mean, he has the power as a president to do that. But I do think that people in this country need to wake up and realize that, you talk about banana republics. We are essentially a banana republic right now in the way that we do things without any checks and balances, without any foundation on how we do things. Without cordial discourse in this country. I mean, we have people that are willing to murder someone, to murder people. But I will close it out and say this, is that the same discussion and all the news and the reporting and everything that going on today and will probably go on for the next week about this murder, I want to see the same level of concern and frustration when other people in this country get murdered. When somebody walks into a grocery store and kills 10 people because of what they look like, or somebody walks into a church and murders somebody because of what they look like. I want to see the media do the exact same thing today and make it a story just like they're doing now. So I'll just end it with that.
Okay, well, good. For those of you who are tuning in and saying, what happened to the episode on women's health in America as it relates to Black women? We got a special guest tonight, and we're going to go to that in just a few minutes, okay? All right, as promised, we're back, and we got a guest this time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to present to you Professor Mariama Forth, Howard University. I'm a little, I'm a little biased. I'm a little biased because this is my daughter. my
Mm-hmm.
oldest. And so I'm very proud of her. And this is the first time she's come to our podcast. And I want y'all to give her a warm welcome, okay?
Yay. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is my first time on your podcast, Dad. You've been on mine several times. But
Yeah.
this is my first time returning the favor, and I'm so glad that I could be here talking about a topic that is very, near and dear to me, and to talk to you and your audience.
Well, good. And we're going to break it down. Yeah, so we're going to just talk a little bit about the relationship between Black women and the American healthcare system and how it's marked by resilience, resistance, and long history of systematic harm. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just a matter of access, it's about dignity, trust, and survival. Systematic disparity and history of trauma. One of the things we want to kind of focus in on, because Mari just went through about a year ago, a little over a year
Mm-hmm.
ago, childbirth, maternal mortality crisis.
Mm.
Black women in the U.S. are nearly 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy related causes than white women, regardless of income or education, y'all. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not a economic, socioeconomic thing.
Nope.
It's a strictly race thing. And pain dismissal. About 22% of Black women who gave birth in the past decade reportedly being denied pain medication they believe they needed, a
Yes.
reflection of racial bias in the clinical decision making. Those two is enough right now. We'll go to the other section now. So just Mari, give us your expert opinion about those things that I just talked about a little bit. And then I'm gonna ask Suleiman from a male perspective, what did he think about it?
Okay, so just a little bit of background. I graduated from Howard University back in 2011 with a degree in clinical laboratory science. And I then went on to pursue a master's degree in forensic science as well. I've had over a decade of experience within the hospital setting, both in the clinical laboratory space, the clinical application space, and as a point of care coordinator, which is like basically a patient and lab liaison, if you will, where a point of care coordinator really is one jobs in a laboratory that has some of the most patient interaction. And so I've been in hospitals a long time. I have 2 kids. Like my dad said, I gave birth to my son, who is 6, back in 2019. And then I just gave birth to my daughter last May in 2024. And the maternal mortality rates of Black women have been a problem for decades now. And one of the reasons that I, as a clinical professional, a medical professional, have always been was always wary of before I had my kids, because I've literally been on the other side of it. One of my specialties was working blood bank in a clinical laboratory for a level 2 trauma center for about 4 years, night shift by myself. So I've seen it where we had special protocols in our blood bank for L&D patients, for labor and delivery patients, because when a labor and delivery, when a C-section in particular, this is more common with C-sections. When a C-section goes bad, it goes bad. And we have what's called a massive transfusion protocol to have like 4 packs of blood, 4 things of plasma, 2 things of platelets ready for when something goes wrong in one of those settings. So I've seen it on that side. And so knowing all of this, going through my birth experience, I was trying to really, really, make sure that I was advocating for myself. I had a doula on my first go round, on my first birth. I had a doula. It didn't work out that great.
Now, that was the funniest thing I ever seen.
Yeah.
I was there for that birth, and the doula came in, and she came in,
Yeah.
and she
Exactly.
sat. I was like, "What is her job?"
She just got out of the way. So yeah,
Me in, coach, me in.
exactly. And so I say all of that to say that you truly have to know the danger so that you can advocate for yourself. That's why I think this podcast is very necessary, because I think in the past few years, the this has been brought up about the Black women and the mortality rate, and I think just more and more voices, more getting that word out for people to be more involved is what is going to help. So for my first birth, which was a vaginal delivery, it really was kind of wonky because even though I had a birth plan, the
Mm,
hospital didn't really follow a lot of my birth plan. I
mm,
said that I didn't want any students. They didn't care. I said I wanted to give birth in a certain birthing position. They didn't do it. Like, mind you, this was a hospital that I also worked at. So again, it's just like,
Mhm.
it is really, and it's really hard to advocate for yourself when you're in pain and when you're pushing. And that was the whole reason why I had the doula. Again, that did not help. To
Yeah.
be honest, I she was a new doula. She was like new. I should have paid. That was my fault. I probably should have paid for the more experienced one. To be quite
You
honest,
get what you
you get
pay
what you
for.
pay
right.
for. And my birth experience actually, like, literally did what something called, they stripped my membranes, which they were specifically not supposed to do. I had my water hadn't broke yet, and I was in active labor, but it hadn't been but a few hours or so, and they weren't supposed to do as many pelvic checks because I was group B strep positive, which is a common bacteria that can be found in the vaginal canal when you're pregnant and stuff like that. It's quite common. That's why they test every pregnant woman before they have birth to know. There's a special treatment. I had to have antibiotics while I was in labor just so that that group B strep doesn't affect the baby on the way out of the canal. Because of this, they're not supposed to do too many pelvic checks on me because if they do too many, they can introduce the bacteria into the birth canal and the amniotic sac. They did not listen. They sent a student in to do the checking. She accidentally stripped my membranes, introduced the bacteria to the amniosac. My water burst, and then my son started to be delivered. But because the bacteria had been introduced, he was I think what happened was my temperature or his temperature started like climbing, like his heart rate started climbing. It was just all this stuff just immediately started happening. And luckily I was dilated enough that I was able to push him out. Again, not in the position that I wanted to, even though they said I could. Before everything happened, they said, oh, yeah, we can prop you up. We can move the bed so you can give birth in this position. When it actually started happening, the nurse, not even the doctor, the nurse was like, oh, you should just continue like this. We're in the middle of it. Continue like this. And then the doctor came in too late. That was another thing. The nurses and the medical students were actually there as I was pushing because the doctor was, I think they were telling me I was the only natural birth happening that day. They had 3 C-sections that they were doing that day, and it was like only one doctor. So by the time the doctor did walk in, like I was already crowning, I was like midway through the delivery, and he had the nerve to be like, "Oh, she wanted to be upright." Like, well, now it's too late. It's
Yeah.
absolutely too late. And
Yeah.
so
There was a madhouse in that room. Like I said, I
it
was in there and I was kind of behind a curtain just looking at
mhm.
the madness that was going on. It
It
was a
was so
madhouse.
crazy. And like, so because of everything that happened when my son was born, he actually had to go to the NICU. He had to go to the NICU because they were afraid that he was positive for the bacteria. So I also had plans to encapsulate my placenta, and they were like, "Oh, we wouldn't suggest it because of, the placenta is more than probably contaminated because of what had happened." And even though in order for them to capsulate the placenta, they have to sterilize it first. It was just like a big old thing. Everybody was saying I
Can,
probably shouldn't do it. So
can
I
I,
ended up not
can I
doing
ask
it.
a question?
What'd you say?
Oh, can I ask a question? Yeah, can
Yeah.
you? I mean, you don't have to get into too much detail, but what do you? What does that mean in capsule? I don't know
Oh,
what that means. Can
yes.
you walk me through?
So, like when you give birth and you have the afterbirth, which is the placenta, they normally just throw it
Hmm.
away. However,
Right.
if you requested, that was another point why I had the doula. That service was included in the doula package as well. But
Hmm.
they had this woman who had came to collect my placenta because she was going to encapsulate it. She was going to sterilize it, dry it out, powder it, and encapsulate it. And the reason why you do that, it's because you can, as you're going through postpartum, you can take
Hmm.
a placenta capsule as you're going through postpartum, and it helps regulate your hormones. Because, and it's an
Wow.
ancient practice that many cultures do, that lost to the modern age. But like, when women, that placenta provides so much nutrients and hormones to a mom and the baby, that once the
Hmm.
baby's out and once the placenta's out, your hormone levels just drop. It goes to zero. Like, it just fluctuates so down. That's why women get like the baby blues, postpartum depression. It's normally because the fluctuation of the hormones.
I
So
got you.
the thought process is, if you encapsulate your placenta, I forget, it would have made like 100 capsules, like pills. If you take like maybe one a day, it helps your body slowly kind of withdraw from those hormones,
Sure.
as
Sure.
opposed to just completely dipping. And your
Wow.
mood is affected, your thought
Hmm.
process is affected. And I really wanted to do that, and I couldn't. And
Hmm.
like, I had tearing, so then they had to start stitching me up. They're
Sure.
stitching me up, and I said, ow, that hurts. I can feel that, even though I had an epidural. And
Sure.
the student was like, oh, we're almost done. My mom looked at that. My mom said, she said it hurt. Like, and
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
said, stop.
You.
She said it hurts. So y'all need to give her some more. They
Pain
did
medicine. Yeah.
yeah, it was so
Local
funny.
anesthetic.
Yeah, local anesthetic. And
Mhm.
so it was just so jarring. Like, literally every second, it was like advocating for myself. And that for me, that was just small things. That wasn't even life threatening things. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
my my daughter, she was born. I had to have an emergency C-section with her because of her heart rate. And
Hmm.
it was at a different hospital, and that team did an amazing job. They kept us in the loop with everything that was happening. When I first got in there, they're like, okay, we're having trouble monitoring the baby's heartbeat, so we're going to make you do some things so that we can like monitor the baby's heartbeat. And then they're like, if her heartbeat keeps dropping like she is, we might have to do an emergency C-section. They kept coming back, and they knew I really didn't want to do that. But unfortunately, with my
Mhm.
baby girl, every time I had a contraction, her heart rate would just stop. Like, the contractions were so hard on her that they could not get her a heartbeat.
That's what happened to you, whether you know
Exactly.
it or
That's
not. Yeah, that's what happened to you. Yeah.
that's what I heard. And
Yeah, you had
so
that. See, yeah.
Wow.
so yeah, and so they taught, they were like, they were, even at one point, they're like, okay, I think we might be good, you won't have to do it. And then the moment that they decided I needed to do an emergency C-section, they explained everything. They were really quick with it. I mean, it was, they took me out of the room. Like, my little girl was out by the time my husband put his scrubs on to come into the room. By the time he came into the room, she was already out. And luckily, once she was out, she was fine. It was just the stress of the contractions on her, and I
Yeah,
was nowhere
exactly.
near dilated. I was nowhere near dilated or ready to have her, so they
Hmm.
had to do it. And then they spent like 45 minutes like sewing me up, and it was a much better experience. But it was scarier because, as I say, C-sections, when you have C-sections, those are the most risky things, because if they cut the wrong thing, if they cut an artery, if they cut anything, it's really hard to come back from it. No, I shouldn't say it's really hard to come back from it. It needs to be addressed immediately, because
Sure.
that's how a lot of maternal deaths happen, is bleeding out. I always think about the story of Kira Johnson, whose husband Charles Johnson, his mother is a judge, I think down there near you, Dad, Georgia. His wife Kira Johnson went into a hospital to have their second son. She was a mother. She was already a mother. They were having their second son. She had a C-section, and 12 hours after her C-section, she ended up dead, because she was bleeding internally. And even though Charles kept pulling nurses, kept pulling doctors, saying, hey, my wife is, she's cold, she says she's freezing, she's pale, she says she doesn't feel good. They kept saying, okay, we'll check on you, okay, we'll get to her, we'll get to her. She laid in that hospital bed, and it wasn't until like they saw blood in her catheter that they took her, to check her out. And by that time, it was too late. She bled out and she died. Charles Johnson, this happened in 2016. He's been an advocate, a healthcare advocate for maternal health since he became a single parent. And it's his story that I think about every time when I think of Black maternal health, because his wife, his was in perfect health going into that birth, and she did not walk out of it because of medical racism. And it is just very important that not only are we advocating for ourselves, but hopefully there are doctors out there that are listening that also take into consideration this. And I don't, I should ask some of our med students. You know what? I think I might ask some of our med students, are they being taught about medical bias and racial bias within the healthcare system? Because it's one of those things, ignorance in these are what kills people. When you confront your bias and you learn how to combat it, that's how we're going to really change this whole statistic. But the first step is everybody being educated on it.
Okay. So, Suleiman, but you have any questions or anything? And how do you see it? Like I said, I was in the room for my daughter's birth, for Mari's birth, and I was in the room for uh, her son's birth, JJ's birth. So I saw both of them firsthand. You have any questions, or how do you see it from a male perspective?
No, I agree 100% with what he said. I mean, I think um, it's pretty obvious, particularly when you start going into lower income neighborhoods or parts of the city, more public hospitals. You start to see it a little bit more. I mean, I do have one example where my sister recently, my older sister, had cervical cancer. Yeah,
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 so what Mari just got through talking about was in our white paper that I sent out, our informational paper. Now I'll read it verbatim, and you can see her experience is the same as what this is saying. Betrayal, trauma. When
Mm-hmm.
institutions meant to heal become sources of harm, it creates a cycle of silence and mistrust. Black women often feel compelled to downplay symptoms or over prepare for their appointments just to be taken seriously.
Yep.
Institutional racism, disparities in diagnosis, treatment, and provider communication are not isolated incidents. They're embodied in the system structure. So everything that you just got through telling our audience, Mari, is part of the facts and figures that we have and we
yeah,
studied about. You said some things that take us to the next level of what we want to finish this up on is how do we move forward?
yeah.
You're going to
Mm-hmm.
ask the students, the medical students, are they being taught about these biases and everything? So that's one way of moving forward and everything. Before we get to you, Mari, because I want you to wrap this up for us, because you're the
Mm-hmm.
expert. We're gonna
Yeah.
see. Do you have any ideas on how we move forward on this and how we can do a better job?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just finish up my story. Is that my sister had cervical cancer, and
Okay.
when I went, back to Ohio, obviously to be with her during her surgery. I mean, Mario, I mean, they obviously they have a surgery, but they also put these kind of these sticks, radiation sticks,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, in my sister. So she had to essentially stay still for a very long time. But nevertheless, the point is the doctor came in, right, with students, and the doctor's talking, and my cousin was there who was an OBGYN, but she never said she was an OBGYN.
Mm.
So she's listening to this doctor, and I'm listening to the doctor, and I'm a layman. I'm not in the medical profession, and I'm listening to her, and I'm like, I don't understand this, and I consider myself to be a pretty smart person. I know my sister doesn't understand this, so I said to the doctor, I was like, hey, can you rewind a little bit and walk us through this process? And she kind of gave me a look that was, I thought it was a bit off, as like, I don't have time for this, and my cousin, finally came in and was like, well, I'm Dr. So-and-so, I'm an OBGYN. I need you to explain to my cousin what's going on with her. She doesn't understand. I do, but she doesn't understand. And you need to explain it to her. And her attitude completely changed when she realized there was another doctor in the room, with her. I mean, she's a surgeon.
Mm.
Oh, she's a surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, again, I can't say for sure that she did it because my sister's African American, but I can assume that she just felt, I'll just tell her what she needs to know and not give her the details. I mean, my sister was telling her, these things are hurting. They're not supposed to hurt. I mean, yes, it's a little uncomfortable, but it's not supposed
Mm-hmm.
to hurt. So, can you move them around or do whatever it is you need to do? And having that conversation helped. But to answer your question, Tony, before I push it back to Mari, is I think that people need to do what Mari said earlier in our conversation, is advocate for yourself. Your husbands need to advocate for you. You should talk as a couple, as a husband and wife, or family members about what questions you're going to have. One of the things that I did when I was flying back with my sister, when I was on the plane, I was writing down questions that I were going to ask. I was looking stuff up online and saying, okay, I need to ask about this, and that. I think that families need to do that as well. It needs to be a team effort. Everybody needs to ask questions. And if you don't understand something, you need to say to the doctor, Doc, I don't understand that. You need to explain that to me again, and not be pushed or forced or shamed into asking questions about your health. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay. So wrap it up for us.
Yes. I would also say, just to piggyback on what Suleiman was saying, just before I get into the wrapping up, like, if there are any, aspiring medical professionals, aspiring doctors, anything out
Mm-hmm.
there that are listening to this, or current doctors listening to this, like, just talking to your patients does a lot. Explaining what's happening eases fears a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Bedside manner cannot be understated. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get it. You're the doctor. You're coming in. You might be. All of us in the healthcare system, we're understaffed. We're overworked. Like, we get that, but taking the time to just sit down and listening to the questions and concerns of the family members and the patients really does go a long way. Like, I know we hate when people come in with their WebMD theories and diagnosis, and asking this and asking that, but it's only because they don't know. They're frightened half the time. They just want that more knowledge to make them feel a little bit better.
Yep.
Just taking the extra 2 minutes to really just break it down in a layman's terms,
Yep.
and just lay out the facts really makes a big difference. Again,
Mm-hmm.
during my C-section with my daughter, my anesthesiologist was amazing. She literally talked me through everything. She listened to my concerns. Without her, I think I would have just lost it. In that,
Mhm.
like, a C-section is crazy, like, and so, like, she really did a great job of just really walking me through everything. And it truly shouldn't take that much from you to just really ease fears and make people feel like they are heard. And again, if you're taking that time and you're making them feel like that you're heard, maybe that they'll listen to you. But also, like, maybe this comes back to advocating, and you might actually figure out something that you need to address by listening to your patients. So again, like I said, the biggest thing we can't do is act like this isn't happening, right? The current administration, that is basically their MO, pretending that bad stuff in healthcare isn't happening and that it'll just go away. Vaccine mandates,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know
Anything, right?
denial of
Mhm.
Right.
diseases. Denial. They have openly denied the racial disparities in maternal health and mortality. That is the absolute last thing we want to do. The only way
Right.
that's going to fix this is to spread more knowledge, be more upfront about that, and actively try to get this number down. Dad, you said it's about 3-1 now. It used to be 4-1. So the
It's
good
getting
thing is,
worse.
you're right, it is getting worse. Shoot.
Yeah, it's getting
Yeah,
worse.
it's getting
Getting
worse.
worse. You're
Yeah,
right. Never
yeah,
mind.
it's getting.
Yeah,
Wow.
but you know why, also it's getting worse? It's Oh my god, I could sit here and talk about the
I
problems in the
know,
healthcare
I
industry
know.
for forever, but rural hospitals, the abortion bans in certain states, that is what is I forgot. That is what's making it worse.
Th- This is
Whew,
definitely a two-part series here.
Oh
yes.
yeah,
Just
definitely.
like just like last week,
Mhm.
prostate cancer, colon
Mhm.
cancer, black men's health, a lot of it our problem and everything.
Yes.
Anything else? Any last words, Mari? Anything?
Just educate and advocate for yourself. Educate
Educate
and
and
advocate,
advocate. That's it.
and for
That's
your
basically
family
what we were saying
as
last
well.
week. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to thank Mariama Forth for coming by once again, my daughter, and everything. Very proud.
The
I'm not.
superstar
Oh
podcaster.
God.
Yeah, there you go, the
Thank you.
expert. And the
Right.
last thing I want to put out there, like I've been doing all this month, I got my t-shirts, I got my prostate cancer awareness band on my arm. And I want you to know that this month is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Black men in particular, go get your PSA. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Okay. Uh, Suleiman, thank you once again. I appreciate you. Let's
Pleasure.
do it again next week. Okay.
Absolutely. Pleasure meeting you, Mark.
All right.
Nice meeting you.
Peace.
Deuces.